What's going on, my friends? Hope you guys enjoyed the bye week there for you Auburn Tiger fans out there. Lauren Sister here with AL.com, hanging out with Cole Kublik with WJOX. You can catch him in the morning with Greg McElroy, and also on SEC Network covering the game of the week. And we're going to break this thing down. Auburn coming off the bye week, heading into a big one against Ole Miss as we hit the back half of the season. Let's go head to head.
Let's go now.
All right, Cole, so we got a 6 o'clock kickoff in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and Auburn actually opening as the 1-point favorite against the number 10 Ole Miss Rebels. And so I want to start, I kind of want to hit the rewind button because we haven't talked in 2 weeks now. And so Auburn goes out and has a great road performance against Arkansas, in which we saw a tremendous performance, one of the best road performances we've ever seen from Bo Nix in his career at Auburn. In my opinion, the offensive line played at a high level. At this point, they are protecting their quarterback, giving up only 7 sacks the entire season amongst 7 games. And all in all, to me, that football game, the way that it was called and hearing from Coach Harsin afterwards, essentially that was the kind of offense that they want to run and consistently run from here on out.
Well, I think the first thing you saw is you got shot plays down the field, and you were able to hit some of those. When you can create explosive plays and you can find ways to run the football, you're going to be really difficult to defend. And Bo Nix found a little bit more touch. He threw those balls a little bit higher and threw them inside where they pulled the receivers over, which gave the receiver a chance to actually adjust instead of just kind of seeing how far you can throw it down the field. So I thought his accuracy on some of the deep balls looked greatly improved. And I continue to say what Coach Harsin and Coach Bobo are doing, mixing up the offense week to week, whether it's formations, motions, adding more quarterback runs, adding misdirection plays. That's really and truly how this Auburn team is winning games. Now, the defense is obviously helping in certain areas. You've seen special team scores, but it feels like, Lauren, almost every week you get a little bit of a different offensive plan. You get one guy outside of Colby Wooden who steps up along the defensive line. It'll be Derek Hall one week. It'll be Romello Height one week. Like somebody, there's always been one other guy. Wooden's been fairly consistent. He's been the guy that has been disruptive all year. But you almost have one other guy along that front that steps up and disrupts or gets pressured, does different things that can make Auburn survive defensively, and then you get some non-offensive touchdowns. That's kind of been the formula for the last few weeks for this football team, and they're grinding out wins. It was an impressive performance, but it took them a while to sort of put Arkansas away. Mm-hmm. And I still think that there were some things that Arkansas helped Auburn with in that game, but this has been a patchwork deal. It's not go out ride Tank Bigsby 40 times a game.
Yeah.
It's not go out and target one receiver 15 times a game. I mean, let's find ways that we have a little bit of a schematic advantage. Let's try to take advantage of it. Let's give ourselves options. Let's force people to defend multiple things. Let's be hard to recognize with how we're going to do things, and then find a way to get the ball into hands of guys who can make plays. And they've done that. And the defense just plays hard. You've got speed at linebacker. You've got numbers on the back end. And you got a couple of guys, some that interchange, one that doesn't in 25, that step up along that front each and every week. So if you just want to cut it in half and look at the first half, I think you have to give Coach Harsin and his staff at least a B+ with what they've done, because you still haven't found that number 1 receiver.
Right.
Don't know who that is yet. And Tank Bigsby hasn't even been the guy on offense. I mean, it's been Bo Nix with his legs and obviously Hunter. So you've had a little bit of a different cast of characters. Look at the tight end involvement. We never thought that these guys would be capable of what they're doing because we never saw them get a chance. So I think when you look at ending that streak at LSU, going to Happy Valley in a tough environment, playing toe-to-toe with the top 10 football team at the time, and then being able to go to Arkansas, a team that's been in the top 10 this year, and have an impressive performance there, you have to say B+, A- for Coach Harsin and his staff at the halfway point of this season.
All right, we'll see how they grade out against Ole Miss. I want to talk about the Ole Miss defense. This is a team that, to me, has shown improvement, continue to improve throughout the year, showing that physicality. They've been good against the pass rush, and then last week against LSU, I think they limited the Tigers to just 77 yards on the ground. How does this defense that Auburn's about to go up against, how do they match up? What key matchup are you looking at there?
Well, I think you will get your opportunities down the field. against this defense. Now, this is one where DJ Durkin and Lane Kiffin, they went and studied the 3-3-5 up at Iowa State this offseason, and that's kind of what they wanted to try to model their defense.
A lot of people studying that Iowa State.
A lot of people
deal.
are going to that defense, and when you look at what they just did to Oklahoma State last weekend, you see why.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to manage. It gives you number advantages. Really helps a lot against RPOs because you not have as many guys on the line of scrimmage, so now you have more players off, so you can crowd up some of those passing windows. It's tough to play the run, though. Because, just think about it. You're playing 3 down. I got 5 offensive linemen. It should be advantage me every time. But depending on who you roll down and how you move and how you align those defensive linemen, it can make it very complicated. So I think from a speed perspective, Auburn has an advantage. I don't think from a power perspective they do. I think 96 and 7 are both playing good football up front for Ole Miss. So I think protecting the quarterback is going to be big. I don't know if Auburn can just go run the ball. There's going to be some things with it where they steal the eyes of some Ole Miss defenders, or they give more formations that are maybe going to be able to give this team problems. It's not just going to be go out and run the ball, because think about what Ole Miss did 2 weeks ago against Florida, or LSU did 2 weeks ago against Florida, and then they couldn't replicate that against Ole Miss last weekend. So they are improved. They're number 100 in the nation in total defense last year, which is a good 30 spots ahead of where they were last year. So they have gotten a little bit better. But they're not a shutdown defense by any stretch of the imagination. I think shot plays could be there, and I think perimeter runs and throws could be there. And if you give them options, if you give them multiple things to defend, that's where I think you can create some more of those explosive plays.
And I want to go to the defensive side of the football now for Auburn. And obviously, you bring in a guy like Matt Corral, one of the top Heisman contenders. He's playing at a high level right now, continuing to do so. And you kind of said it, like this Auburn team wasn't able to necessarily put Arkansas away quickly. And I think that's going to be important against this football team, limiting the run game. Right now, Ole Miss is running the football 266 yards in its win over LSU. They've run the football over 250 yards now 5 times this season. So the run game, you're going to have to stop the run game. Now, on the flip side of that, Auburn is limiting its opponents to just under 125 rushing yards per game. So I think that's going to be a big point of emphasis. And then, of course, yards after catch, another area to me that they can focus in on, because Ole Miss right now is second in the SEC right now with yards after catch. And so being able to limit some of those explosive plays, but those yards after catch that can certainly slice you up and, again, be problematic if Auburn wants to try to put Ole Miss away early.
It's one of my big keys for Auburn in this game when you talk about, okay, why was Auburn a 1.5 favorite to open this game? You begin to look at the matchups, and one that I came to early on was Auburn tackles well.
Yeah.
If you're going to beat Ole Miss or have success, any success against this offense, you have to tackle well. Now, you go back to the Tennessee game for Ole Miss, that's a team that actually tackles well. I know people look at that defense and you don't see any real name value on the Tennessee defense, but fundamentally they play fairly sound and they tackle pretty well. It's 2 things that have really improved for them this season. So I think the fact that Auburn tackles well, I think the fact that you have speed at linebacker, that if you did want to go out and try to mirror Matt Corral somehow, that you would have advantages being able to do that. He's not going to be able to run away from an Owen Papo or as a Kobe McLean or whoever you want to try to do that with. And then the numbers on the back end. Auburn just has more bodies that are more capable on the back end of their defense than most teams that Ole Miss plays. Like, it was one big advantage I thought LSU would have coming into the season playing against Ole Miss, but half their guys are out. They're all banged up, so they're all playing with second and third stringers on the back end. Some of those guys have still played well, but that's a big advantage for Auburn. So Auburn won't dominate this game up front because the Ole Miss offensive line is still pretty good. They've actually gotten bigger and stronger from last season, especially at left guard and center. But the way Ole Miss runs the ball is not pushing you around. It's going fast, forcing you to be misaligned, not allowing you to substitute, and spreading you out. Because they're gonna empty the box with what they offer you other places. And so they're gonna be difficult to basically handle because you don't have enough defenders at the line of scrimmage. And Matt Corral's totally changed it. I mean, they went in, I had the Tennessee game, and I know they went into that game without many design quarterback runs. But once they saw what Tennessee was giving them, they made the adjustment. Lane just basically said, told Jeff Lebby, turn him loose, and then Matt Corral just did it from there. So you have to be wary of that, but I think Auburn has the personnel to defend it well. They have the personnel on the back end to be able to defend it well. And then I think, too, you don't have to be dominant up front against this team. It's just because I think you do need to generate a pass rush. Because when Matt Corral has time, he can pick you apart. But go look at the number. He's only thrown for 300 yards twice this year. And I'm not taking anything away from Matt Corral. I think he's in the discussion as the best quarterback, maybe best football player in college this year. But the difference is, Lauren, they do not rely on his arm. And he is playing more within the system. I asked him when we met with him, I said, you know, you go back to that 6-interception game against Arkansas, 5-interception game against LSU. Like, what's different this year? He said, I learned from my mistakes. He said, I'll be honest with you, LSU game, I was just letting it go. He said, I figured we weren't in it. We needed to make plays. I was going to be the guy to try to make plays. I forced it. It didn't turn out well for us. He said, I've learned from my mistakes. And when you talk to Jeff Lebby about him, he'll tell you he's a guy that when you give him something, it stays with him. You don't have to reiterate 15, 20 times a week about what he needs to be doing. So Derek Mason's got to find a way to confuse him, to disrupt him, to take him out of his rhythm. But rush 3, drop 8, it's not working against him anymore. Because and Lane told us, we studied that the entire offseason. How do you beat rush 3, drop 8? Well, what'd you just give us the numbers? You run the ball. I mean, it's plain and simple. You got 3D linemen, you're dropping everybody else, run the damn ball. And you're probably going to have success because you got the numbers. So that chess match with Derek Mason of who plays up, who plays back, what personnel grouping you want to go with. The scary thing for me was seeing Jerrion Ely involved back in the offense last week for Ole Miss, because you know Snoop Connor can get it. You know what John Rice Plumlee's capable of. If Braylon Sanders is healthy, if they can get Mingo back, you know what these guys are able to do. But now Ely's been sort of the missing piece in my mind.
Yeah.
And they can move him around, they can motion him. Didn't do a lot of that last week, but it's all there, and he's capable of it.
They've got obviously a lot of weapons there, including, as you said, Ely and Parrish, another guy to look at. And certainly the big thing, too, for Auburn, and this kind of goes with our prediction, you know, one of the biggest things, you run the football, hit the explosives for Auburn offensively, but defensively, this Auburn defense has to do better on third downs. They've got to get off the field in third downs. I think that's a critical area that they need to focus in on. And as they return back to Jordan-Hare Stadium, I'm going to pick Auburn to win this one 30-27. Just being back home, Jordan-Hare Stadium, I think they're playing inspired football right now, obviously coming off that win against Arkansas. You know, sometimes you wonder if there might be a little bit of a lag coming off the bye week, but the hope is that they're juiced up, ready to go, feeling good, and rejuvenated, regenerated, and ready to attack the back half of the season. So 30-27 Auburn.
I've gone back and forth to this game thinking about it, and I could convince myself to go either way, but being at home I think is what makes the difference for me. Having a little bit of extra time makes the difference for me. I think Auburn will come back a little bit healthy. I think they're going to have a lot of new stuff that we're going to see, especially on offense. And if Bo Nix just protects the football, I do think Auburn wins the game. I think they can get 34 points. I'm going to go 34-31. Auburn, I think one of those touchdowns comes via something other than the offense, be it defense or special teams, and that sort of puts them over the top, because it's a dangerous offense to play, like you said. Even if you feel like you put them away, they can find points in bunches. But I think being at home, understanding what's ahead of them, being able to get a little bit more healthy off the bye week, Auburn finds a way to get a win, which would be massive for Coach Harsin.
Talking a little trash on the field? Yeah, we get it. Trashing the state with litter? That's terrible. Keep it clean, keep Alabama beautiful.
It's guaranteed that I die legend. Yeah, son God, homie, I'm reverend. Breaks, just protecting my investment. Ask about me, integrity's not in question.